Welcome to a new daily top Askreddit video. Today's topic. Serious, people of Reddit who have gone through or are going through cancer, what was the first sign that made you go to the doctor? Attention. Serious, tag notice. Jokes, puns, and off-topic comments are not permitted in any comment, parent or child. Parent comments that aren't from the target group will be removed, along with their child replies. Report comments that violate these rules. Posts that have few relevant answers within the first hour, and posts that are not appropriate for the serious tag will be removed. Consider doing a NOMA request instead. Thanks for your cooperation and enjoy the discussion. I am a bot, and this action was performed automatically. Please contact the moderators of this subreddit if you have any questions or concerns. I felt a pop in my back. It was actually a vertebra breaking. I had severe pain after, and was later diagnosed with multiple myeloma, a blood cancer. That was 5 years ago, and today I am in remission. Yori. Congrats. D. I had what I thought was a stoke and found out I have a glioblastoma. I was given 12 to 15 months and so far I've made it to the 15th month. Stay strong, my dude. My grandma was given 6 months for her lymphoma around the time I was born, nearly 29 years ago. I had coffee with her on Friday. Keep going. My self-diagnosed IBS was actually a tumor and it hemorrhaged. Stage 4 rectal cancer. I beat that, but it is in my liver now, too big to operate. I am living my best life while I can. Man, I wish you good luck. I also diagnosed myself with IBS. What were your symptoms before the blood? I don't want this comment to get buried. Pro tip. If you ever have blood in your stool, that is more than just scraping your asshole on some cheap toilet paper. You need to get this checked out by a doctor. You can get a bad edema from it and it can be coming from a tumor, an erosion, or a polyp. Source. I'm an MD. Don't just write it off as IBS and ignore it. Please, please, please. Edit. Wow, thanks so much for the gold and awards. I tried to reply to many of the comments here, but I physically can't get to them all. Let me also say, don't take any of this as official medical advice. The main takeaway from what I have replied to many comments is that the peace of mind that you can get from finding out you don't have X condition is often well worth a history and physical exam and determination on the next diagnostic steps. Not everyone who goes in will need a CT scan and an EGD/colonoscopy. However, someone might, and they might come back clean, and oftentimes that can be as well worth the process as finding something definitive. Doctors are well trained in deciding how and when to work someone up, but you never get the benefit of their training if you don't tell them your story. Every visit has a history and physical in it, and that's often the most important part. Edit #2. Alright, so I can't physically reply to every comment. I tried to reply to as many as I could. I'm going to get on with my day, but I want to leave you with these final thoughts. Not all blood in the stool or butt is cancer. Some is. Some has other manageable and treatable causes. Why not stop bleeding from your butt if you can? If you're concerned, go to your PCP or get a PCP. URS and urgent cares aren't a good option because they won't follow you longitudinally. They want to make sure you're not dying and then get you home. And if you are dying, they want to stabilize you, admit you and get you treated. A primary care doctor, i.e. an internal medicine or family medicine trained doctor, can get a thorough history from you, including a history of present illness, past medical history, family history, and social history. They can then do an exam. Yes, this might involve a rectal exam. I'd argue worth it for a diagnosis or non-diagnosis. Get labs, and then integrate all of this information together to find the most and least likely causes. They can then escalate your workup if necessary. And they can continue to follow your symptoms, exam and labs. They can also make sure you're getting the right care. You might be overdue or soonly due for a screening colonoscopy anyways. A lot of peace of mind comes from knowing your symptoms are coming from a bacterial infection, stomach ulcer, or hemorrhoid, or even nothing. A negative EGD or colonoscopy provides a lot of information on what you don't have, which is what some people need. Some PPL are happy simply knowing they don't have a giant tumor in their colon. Also, primary care docs can appropriately direct you to get or not get a procedure. No doctor likes ordering unnecessary tests and procedures, and they are the best one to decide if you would or would not benefit. Don't go them demanding someone puts a camera up your butt and down your throat. Different cameras, If you're unhappy with your care, you can always seek a second opinion. Insurance and healthcare costs in America suck. I cringe every time I see a Reddit post about someone going to the and having a hundreds minus 1,000s of dollars bill they can't afford. As Scrubs said so eloquently, everything comes down to poo. https://m.youtube.com. I'm glad you all are taking ownership of your health, but please don't message me for medical advice. I am happy to see and evaluate patients at work, but like you all, I have a life outside of it as well, with my own stresses and expenses, and precious free time. I try to be as nice and helpful as I can be. I like to talk to people and respond. I feel like a jerk for ignoring people, and I don't like feeling like a jerk. Please don't make me feel like a jerk. I hope this post helped you learn a thing or two. I hope you can get your problems worked up, and I hope everyone stays healthy. PSA: unintended weight loss or finding blood where you normally wouldn't. Get yourself to a doctor. What is it about tumors that causes these two symptoms? Cancer by definition causes a lot of dysregulated growth, so you lose weight because it's using up your energy / nutrients to grow, and it bleeds because part of that growth is it making its own blood supply to give it nutrients and oxygen. These vessels are numerous and abnormal, so they are more prone to bleeding. My dad went to the after a big bump had formed on his neck overnight. He was prescribed severe rash medication but went back after nothing had worked. Everyone, even the doctors, thought it had been an allergic reaction or some kind of rash, but after testing for other causes, they found that he had Hodgkin's lymphoma and a 6-inch mass in his chest. It has been over a year, he has finished treatment, and the cancer shows no sign of returning. Edit: thank you all so much for all the kind words and support. That's wild. Never knew lumps appeared like that. Seen as it was Hodgkin's, I'm guessing the lump itself wasn't actually the cancer but an immune response / swollen node. I'm a current Hodgkin's patient. From what my oncologist said, the swollen nodes are actually cancerous. When they did my PET scan, it showed 2 cancerous masses in my neck and 1 in my chest. What's wild is toward the end of my very first chemo infusion, I could feel my neck masses shrinking and changing. I had a persistent pain in the middle of my sternum. Doctors thought it was costochondritis, essentially just inflammation of a joint. I stopped working out and lifting heavy things for 3 months, but it didn't go away. Eventually I started having night sweats and random aches. After I fractured my hip, I got an MRI and biopsy and they diagnosed me with stage 4 non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. I got chemo and I've been in remission for 5 years. My dad had non-Hodgkin's lymphoma. It started as a tickle in his throat, and then he lost his voice. As in, he could not talk beyond the strength of a whisper. He chalked it up to a bad throat cold. 5 weeks later, and we finally got him to go to the hospital. Stubborn SOB that he was. Huge tumor put pressure on his vocal cords, which caused him to lose his voice and have difficulties swallowing. He went for chemotherapy, made it through and was in remission for 7 years before it came back. Then chemotherapy and radiation again. Then it came back in his pancreas, where he had abdominal pain and other difficulties but did not tell us. Listen to your body, please. As someone who has lost their loved one, if you suspect something is out of the ordinary, do not hesitate to bother the doctor about trivial shit. Be well. Take care, and all my best to you and your family. Seizures. I got seizures out of nowhere during the night. No history of seizures in my family. Got my head screened and they found what they thought to be a benign tumor. Anaplastic astrocytoma, diagnosed 2 months before my 22nd birthday. Nearing the 5-year mark, though, with no evidence of it returning. My dad had anaplastic astrocytoma and ended up seizing while in a bee suit in the middle of a parade, so that was awkward. Edit clarity. My dad was in bed one night and said he felt like he was drowning, then began coughing up blood. That's terrifying. What kind of cancer did he have? He had kidney cancer, but it had spread to his lungs. I was 17, getting ready for spring break back in 2010. Was making plans with my boyfriend on the phone because we were going to take his brothers to the zoo in a different city. Literally in seconds there's this big translucent blind spot in my eye that is orange. I can see dark shapes behind it, but it's super blurry. I figured I would just go to the eye doctor before I left the next day, but my sister, who actually works for the cancer center in my city, told me that I should go to the hospital because anything weird with your vision can be super serious. After 36 hours of emergency waits, driving to specialists, they finally admitted me to the I ward for a bacterial infection. Then they took my blood for a routine blood test. Within an hour or so, as I was getting ready to sleep, a doctor and nurse come in. The nurse has a box of tissues. The doctor told me my blood is leukemic, to which I asked, okay, can I treat that? He was extremely unclear on what was happening. I was 17, my family had already left, and I had no idea about any cancers. I was diagnosed with acute lymphoblastic leukemia and started chemo that night after being transferred to a different hospital. They did a bone marrow biopsy the next morning and then sent it to a genetic lab in another province. When the test results came back, they changed my diagnosis to chronic myelogenous leukemia in the blast phase crisis, final stage, that was caused by the Philadelphia chromosome, where chromosomes 9 and 22 switch places and causes a mutation in my red blood cells. Told me I was the youngest person in the world with it, as CML usually takes a very long time to progress and the final stage doesn't show until around 65 years of age. That change in diagnosis changed my timeline. They had originally said 6 months to a year untreated, but now it was 1 to 3 months if I didn't get a stem cell transplant or bone marrow transplant. All this because I had blood clots happening all over my body because of the abnormalities of my red blood cell shapes, and the one in my eye presented itself in my vision since the vessels are so small. Edit: I guess I never finished off. I just celebrated 10 years in remission on June the 17th this year and I'm healthy. My sister ended up being a 10/10ths DNA marker match and I was able to get a stem cell transplant on June the 17th, 2010. Still immunocompromised and taking dasatinib every day, chemo pill, but able to live my life. COVID has been really worrisome for me, but I'm just trying to be as careful as possible. Thanks for all the comments. And PS. I'm a female. The boyfriend was extremely supportive for a teenager and we were together for 7 years before we parted ways mutually. I recently signed up as a bone marrow donor and these kind of stories make me hopeful for donating to someone in need one day. I hope I'm someone's match. Edit: wow, this blew up while I was asleep. Here is the website for those who want to know more about the process or want to sign up. I actually personally signed up on this site, not sure if it's any different. I still sent in a cheek swab at sea, but I don't think it differs. That's amazing. Yeah, my sister ended up being a 10/10ths DNA marker match for me and donated her stem cells. I know the probability doesn't actually work out like this, but I have 4 siblings and they said siblings have a 1 in 4 chance of being a good match. I'm so thankful for anyone who is registered to be a donor for stem cells or bone marrow.